I'm at ETSI Security Conference, and I'm with Diego Lopez from Telefonica and chair of ETSI PDL, which is the Permission Distributed Ledgers. Thank you so much for joining me, Diego, and taking the time.
Pleasure.
Can you please start just by introducing yourself and your background in security a little bit?
Okay, so I have been with Telefonica for the last 10 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
I was hired because Telefonica was I was hired by Telefonica because they were starting a new track on research and development focused on virtualizing network services and the evolution towards SDN, what became SDN, NFV, etc. And since then, I have been involved in standardization of these new ways of dealing with network services with ETSI and elsewhere. And in fact, I have been chairing, for example, the NFV ISG, and I have been, and now currently I'm chairing another ISG on network automation. And precisely some time ago, we started this activity on the use of distributed ledgers and the possibility of using distributed ledgers as network services in the part of the network infrastructure. Basically, because in my younger times, I was in charge of a team that was dealing with digital identity and, in general, security services within the academic network. And when I moved to Telefonica as well, I engaged as well with the people working on securing the infrastructure and providing security services on the network infrastructure. So that's why I'm here.
Great, thank you. And just to start with, I know you've actually already written for Cybersecurity Magazine a bit on distributed ledger technology, but could you quickly kind of explain what permission distributed ledgers are and their importance?
Yeah, well, the difference, with distributed ledgers, I guess that everything is clear. It's about what is popularly known as blockchains, and it's immutable chains of data that can be verified, related by anyone, and they are distributed, so there is no centralized authority. The only difference is that in the case of permission distributed ledgers, there is a precondition to participate in the ledger. That is, as the other members of the ledger, or the other participants of the ledger, has to accept you. So it's a sort of a closed club, in the sense that to become part of the club, you need to get approval from the previous members. The advantage of this is that, with respect to the general example that we have with Bitcoin, etc., which is unpermissioned ledgers, is that the complexity of how you establish consensus inside the ledger and how you establish the general agreement on the data is simplified because the club is closed. And that has positive implications, if you think about it, in terms of legally binding matters, on regulatory matters. And something that right now is becoming more and more important is that about the energy consumption that you need to participate in it. Bitcoin is claimed to be wasting more energy or spending more energy, not wasting, don't. Spending more energy than certain a medium-sized country currently. In a permission ledger, you can limit that because not anyone can participate up front. You need some interaction and some agreement with the other members. That's why we believe that permission ledgers are specifically interesting for industrial environments.
Okay, and is it reducing that energy consumption because it's generally involving less people,
because the way in which you establish the agreement among the different participants, since you know the participants, how you had to prove that that you should be authorized to put data inside is easier because you know in advance the number of people that are, the people of nodes that are participating.
Okay, thank you. And you mentioned briefly at the beginning the possibility of this being part of a network service. Could you just talk a bit about that and your work there?
Yeah, what we are is exploring precisely, my talk today in the conference was about that. It's about how you can rely on ledgers on this kind of distributed ledgers to automate and provide transparency for the provision of whatever the network service, the provisioning, the assurance, the monitoring, the billing. So third parties can participate in it and add an additional level of trust on what's going on, and at the same time to simplify the automatization of how customers express their needs and how providers express their offerings. matching them, and making all happening in a closed loop without direct human intervention.
Okay, and what are the challenges of bringing this practically to a network service?
Well, to start with, is that what we have right now are let's say, the foundations for it in terms of the algorithms and the techniques, etc. But what we need is precisely to put on top of it the necessary mechanisms to enforce certain properties that are desirable, like, for example, proper timing. In a contract, time is very important. You have to execute things at a particular place, or you have to when you end a contract, you would like to disappear totally, and the previous verification before you install it, etc. So it's the layer on top of that would support the different applications that we are considering.
Okay, and this is something that ETSI PDL is working on?
Yeah, we have produced, so far we have published 2 documents. One is with a reference architecture. The other one goes into an analysis of the requirements and details, which are the options, the architectural options you have to provide. So, and right now people are working on precisely concrete applications, like, for example, non-repudiation, so you cannot deny that something happened, or things like how you provide what the so-called oracles, that are the pieces that connect the real world to the smart contracts of the distributed ledger by means of providing the data that is going to be included in the ledger.
Okay, and how important are standards and standardization for this?
Well, the idea of having standards is as usual, is to simplify. On the one hand, is to simplify the access to the technology to the potential consumers, providers, technology developers, etc. So you know what you are looking for, you know what you are being offered by, and you know what you are choosing. Warranty interoperability, so you can be free to choose the different pieces, etc. And something that I think is equally important is precisely fostering innovation. The idea that a small group of people with a brilliant idea can implement their idea in a particular, without needing to develop the whole thing. They can implement a particular brilliant proposal for a particular area, and they can remain assured that this is going to work, and they can offer this to potential customers sooner than in the other case.
Okay, and just finally, you mentioned it briefly earlier, smart contracts. That's one of the benefits of distributed ledgers. Can you just talk a bit about what these are and kind of how they're relevant?
Basically, smart contracts are programs. It's a small program. Normally, you don't make a big program, and those programs are stored inside the ledger. So and they are signed by the participants in the contract.
Yeah.
So the idea is that whenever the smart contracts list a series of conditions that would trigger different pieces of the program and will be executed. The idea is a smart contract is something that is going to be executed whenever a certain event happens automatically, once they have been agreed by the parties. So it's something, it's precisely, it's a contract because it's an agreement, and it's smart because it will take action on its own without any human intervention.
Okay, and how does this build into the work that ETSI PDL is doing?
Precisely what we have defined is this architecture for building the smart contracts, and which are the different phases that a smart contract has to go. The parties that are taking or signing the contract, how they can remain assured that the contract is what is intended for, can be verified, and then once it is executed, how it can be controlled so it has a well-behaved lifetime. So it can be really used by the different parties.
Okay, thank you. And one last question. I would just love to get your thoughts on the future of the work at ETSI PDL and where you see it going.
Well, we are working precisely in adding these elements. We have focused very much on smart contracts right now because we believe is one of the main areas of precisely of operational advantage that we can make from distributed ledgers in general. We are focused on precisely how these smart contracts would interact with the rest of the world, how the different mechanisms for making them interoperable, and the ideas regarding their lifecycle management, and how, for example, you can make a smart contract not accessible at all when it has terminated. From both parties agree that the contract is not applicable any longer. How you hide it from the rest of the you hide, sorry, not hide. Hide is, or well, you hid it in the past, but whatever.
Yeah. You're giving that assurance.
Exactly. So the people can remain assured that that the contract, it was not only effective during this its lifetime, but has been properly wrapped and forgotten when it's done. This is when it relates to smart contracts, but we are considering as well the application of distributed ledgers for digital identities of all natures, not only of humans, but as well of other entities that you can find in a networked environment. And as well to something that is equally important, I believe, when talking about trust and security, etc., which is about reputation. How you can use the ledger to establish or assess a reputation for a particular identity, whether a person or any other entity that lives on the network.
Okay, well, great. Thank you so much, Diego, for joining me. It's been really interesting. I'm sure we could talk about this for ages, but sadly we've run out of time.
If you allow me.
Yeah.
Sorry
Great.
about that.
Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the rest of the conference that we have to go.
Thank you so much, Philippa.